Hey guys, welcome back to another great game of CEDH. Today I'm asking the question, is Mystic Remora or Rhystic Study better? Both of those cards show up in today's game and definitely have an impact on it, but I'll leave it up to the viewer to say which one was better. Also, if you want to support the channel, come check out our Patreon, as it's the best way to support the channel and help us produce the content you enjoy. Also, if you're interested in playing with us, hop on our Discord. We have an ever-growing community and would love to talk MTG or whatever strikes your fancy. And another benefit is we often let people know when we play and would love to meet some new people. Alright, block there, kill that. Oh, that is trample. Guess I'm just dead on board. Starting us off is Mango, who has brought Jin-Gitaxias, Progress Tyrant. This is a mono-blue control deck that aims for an early Jin to slow their opponents down, while using double spells to outvalue the table. Next up is Jimmy, piloting Kalamax. And while his dino's made a few appearances on the channel, I know any deck Jimmy brings will always have his signature spice added to it. But the core of the deck is still Kalamax. Turn sideways, get swole, and copy some spells, with the classic Underworld Breach Brain Freeze win con. In the third spot, we have Fernando and Najeela. This is a 5-color Thasus consultation list that backdoors into an infinite creatures and combats combo with Najeela, who, even if just left alone, can amass a horde of warriors to take their opponents out. And bringing up the rear, we have mtga Loots playing Tymna Malcolm. This is an Esper tempo list that uses both Malcolm and Tymna to generate advantage when they connect. Malcolm can ramp surprisingly well, especially when you get another pirate into play, and everyone knows that Tymna draws so many cards. Ultimately using Thasus Demonic for the win. But without further ado, let's get on to the gameplay. Mango has an island and taps it for a Soul Ring, which turns sideways for 2 keys, Manifold and Voltaic. And yes, those islands do awfully look like swamps. Jimmy has a Mana Crypt and plays a Rejuvenating Springs as land. He uses it on a Mystic Remora, finally ending his turn with a Lotus Petal. Fernando shocks in an Overgrown Tomb and taps it for an Ignoble Hierarch. Loots also shocks in a land, and this one being a Watery Grave, but he passes after that. Mango has another island and pays 4 into a Solemn. He passes as she grabs another island to the field. Jimmy is safe from his crypt and pays 1 for his fish. A Boseiju comes out as his land, and he taps out for a Felwar Stone. Fernando plays and cracks a Misty Rainforest to grab a Volcanic Island. This gets him 3 mana for Najeela. He casts his commander, and in response, loots Brainstorms. He gives a card to Jimmy, and then draws 3 and puts 2 back, but doesn't have anything else, and Najeela resolves. Loots plays a Morphic Pool as land, and feeds the fish again, with a Felwar Stone of his own. Mango has a Reliquary Tower, and has the mana for a turn 3 Jin-Gitaxias. Loots does have a response as he Mystical Tutors, once again feeding Jimmy a card. Loots ends up putting a Swords on top, and the Jin resolves, with Mango ending their turn after that. Jimmy is safe with his crypt, and pays 2 for his fish. He has a Volcanic Island, and casts his dino Kalamax. A Plateau comes out from Fernando, and for 4 he casts a Totski. Combat is then held, and Fernando sends Najeela, and the newly created warrior at Loots, who can't block, and Fernando gets to end his turn drawing 2 cards from the squirrel. Loots draws his swords and taps out for a Rhystic Study. Jimmy draws and Loots is done after that. Mango starts off her turn with a Hedron Archive. She gets a copy off the Jin and doesn't pay for either Rhystic or the fish. Next up is a Narset, Parter of Veils. Mango pays for the Rhystic, but not the fish. And with the Narset still in the stack, Jimmy cracks his petal for a green for a Whirly Tutor. It does get countered by Jin, but he needed the way clear for a Force of Will, exiling an Anticipate. Loots does get to draw 2 from his Rhystic, and the Narset is countered. And as revenge, Mango then sends Jin at Jimmy, who takes 5. Jimmy pays for his fish and is safe from his crypt. He has a Spire Guard in his land and heads to combat. Mango does have a response, as she casts a Reality Shift, targeting the dino. She gets an extra copy from the Jin, and targets the Totski. She doesn't pay for the fish, but does pay for the Rhystic. Fernando did try and make a deal with Jimmy to try and save his Totski, but that falls through, and the squirrel gets exiled. But with the original shift still on the stack, Jimmy responds with a verdant command, which gets countered by Jin. But he gives a card to Lutz, and Jimmy then follows that up with a Flusterstorm to counter the reality shift and protect his dino. Kalamax then gets to turn sideways at Fernando, and Jimmy is done after that. Fernando starts off with a Dockside Extortionist. He doesn't pay for the Rhystic, and Fernando gains 11 treasures off the ETB. Fernando then moves to combat and sends the Manifest at Mango with Najeela and a Warrior at Jimmy. Najeela triggers and Fernando sends the 2 new Warriors at Lutz. Mango does block the Manifest with her Solemn and gets a draw off the Death trigger, with the rest of the table taking the hit. After damage, Fernando spends 5 treasures to activate Najeela for another combat, and this time Fernando sends his whole team of Najeela and 3 Warriors at Mango. He creates another 4 Warriors and gains 10 life. He ultimately decides to crack 5 more treasures to activate Najeela again for another combat, this time sending the team at Jimmy for a total of 18 damage. After the fact, Fernando did realize he probably shouldn't have spread the love out and instead targeted a single person. But what's done is done. Lutz has a Tundra as land and starts off with a Ponder. He gives a card to Jimmy and it gets countered by Jin. Lutz then follows it up with a Mana Crypt. Lutz isn't sure what he wants to do and settles on a Tainted Pact, giving another card to Jimmy. Lutz starts exiling off the top and is hoping for a Toxic Deluge. He does have to stop though when he reveals a Thassa's Oracle. Lutz still has a Floating Colorless and ends his turn with a Dark Confidant. Mango untaps and plays an island as land. She casts a Secret of the Golden City and gets a copy of it from Jin. She decides to not pay for either Rhystic or the fish. Mango then draws 6 and doesn't find the card she needs. She cracks her Hedron Archive for another 2 cards, but has to end her turn there. Jimmy lets his fish die and is safe from the crypt. He plays and cracks a Flooded Strand for a tropical island. He then follows it up with a Spellseeker, to which Fernando responds with an Opposition Agent. Although to the surprise of the table, Mango is actually the one to respond with the counterspell to try and stop the agent. This triggers Jin to double it, but Fernando thought he had the answer as he tries a Deflecting Swat, the copy, to the original. But unfortunately he forgot about the Jin, and with this being the first instant for the turn, Jin counters his spell. Jimmy then gets to tutor out a Cyclonic Rift, although luckily for the table, he is a mana short from overloading it. Jimmy then sends Kalamax at Fernando for 4, and on his second main phase, Jimmy fires off a Fiery Cannonade. He gives a counter to Kalamax and copies it to deal 4 damage to each creature and wipe the board of every creature but Kalamax, Jin, and funnily enough the Dockside. Jimmy then ends his turn casting a red Elemental Blast to destroy the Jin and give a card to Lutz. Fernando draws and wild grows his Plateau. He gives a card to Lutz and at his end step, Jimmy casts a Noxious Revival. It triggers Kalamax to copy the spell and gives a card to Lutz off the Rhystic. Jimmy then puts a Fiery Cannonade and his Mystic Remora back on top of his library. And, still at Fernando's end step, Lutz swords as the Kalamax. Lutz then takes 3 from his crypt and shocks in a Hollowed Fountain. Lutz then casts a Mox Opal and a Chrome Mox. He exiles a Spectral Sailor and casts a Grim Monolith. He still has 8 cards in hand and begins counting mana. He casts a Malcolm and follows it up with a Monodic Betrayal. This gives him the protection he needs to cast Thassas and Demonic Consultation for the win. Before I get into the game review, I want to thank our Patreon supporters, Monsters Bane, for their continued support, and now onto the game review. Game review. Well, it looks like Thassas takes another one. Although I am surprised that Jimmy didn't have this game locked down with all those cards he drew off his fish. I guess the mana to keep it around really did put a tax on him. That stopped him from taking over. Although the Jin really did a good job of slowing the other players down as well, especially when it came out turn 3. But I think Mango is a little too worried about Najeela and spent her last turn digging for answers instead of progressing. But maybe she did just draw poorly. As for Lutz, I definitely did not expect him to take this game. As for the most of it, he had no mana to do anything, and luckily for him, the Rhystic really did pull him out of the hole, and gave him the win. But question to the viewer, which would you rather have, Rhystic Study or Mystic Remora? Let me know in the comments down below. Hey guys, Thanks for making it to the end of the video. I just wanted to let you know that we have a TCG affiliate link, and if you ever see a card you want to try or are inspired to brew something new, use our link when purchasing and we'll receive a small portion of the sale. This is a great way to support the channel, and if you enjoyed the gameplay, please leave a like and subscribe, as it really helps us keep making videos. And remember, never give up, even if you're dead on board. I'll see you guys later.